This is the first time we hear um Cat Williams. It's the first time we hear of Roland possibly being a hero whenever Susanna realizes he's the last of his kind.
All right.
I
Streams live, just a heads up, just so you guys know, streams live. We read just two chapters this time. I think Steve mentioned earlier, like, they were important chapters, like stuff happens. Hoping we can get through this pretty quickly, and just get on to the next few reading sessions, because that's when things are going to get really good. I think last time we talked about what's her booty? Mia. Mia. And she was scary, actually. She's a scary person. We saw her being scary.
Yeah, we really didn't know where that was going.
There's a pretty much just to kind of refresh last time, because it's been a while. They're on the road. They've been spoken to by a Father Callahan. He wants them to meet with the rest of the some of the important people in town, and they're gonna like ask for help. That's pretty much what we've got so far. The other part that we're talking about with Mia is Susanna has been leaving in the middle of the night and feasting on just a delicious array of frogs and like snails and snakes and lizards and leeches, all the creepy crawlies of the marsh. Just loving it. But in her mind, she's another person. She's become this Mia person, who we've found out the word Mia in the high speech means mother, so it's very fitting. Because there is a chap on his way.
All I can think of is Mamma Mia.
Mamma Mia. I mean, that's you are not wrong there. There is a chap on the way, and Mia is feeding it. Now we start here where Roland and the crew are going to go have a palaver with their friend Overholzer. Before they actually get there to talk, Roland charges Susanna with pretend to be my whore, so they kind of forget you're here and listen more than you talk. So he's kind of got her to where he believes that they will assume that she's like his side piece and say things and act certain ways around her, so that she will get more information than he gets. I think it's a super smart move on his part, but Susanna's a little, I think, slightly offended by it. However, she sees the merit in what's going on, so she goes with it. Data Walker part of her is not happy with it, but that's kind of the point here. So when they show up, you've got Wayne Overholzer, who's the big farmer. You've got the Jaffords, the husband and wife who we started this book with. You've got Benny and Benny the Elder, and it's Slightman the Elder and Younger. Those is Ben and Ben Jr., I guess. You've also got where's he at?
Callahan.
Yeah, Father Callahan is still involved. Thank you. There's a little bit of a power struggle when they first meet. You get the idea that Wayne Overholser doesn't believe that these people are who they say they are. He's not convinced, even though Roland has told Callahan multiple times, "We will not convince people." This is the one who he tried to warn him, like, he will need to be convinced. He
kind of reminded me from the white guy, or the guy that wore the white hat in Cool Hand Luke. What do we have here?
is failure.
That's what he
To
reminded me
communicate.
of, and I'm like, God, I just want to punch him in the face.
I kind of imagined a John Wayne type, big talker, big stagger walker, the guy who's just used to being in charge. He's the big farmer there. He's the big rancher there. So, he's making the most money and probably able to like make the most calls as far as like people's influence. Roland takes him aside, has a conversation. I
think it's funny because Susanna's, she's like, he thinks he's pushing him, but that shit's gonna only last so long.
Eventually, the talk leads to Overholser asking Roland, "Are ye what ye say? Tell me true, Si." And Roland says, "I'm Roland of Gilead." But Gilead's long gone, and Roland said, "I am not."
He's like, "You lie. Tell me where you are for real."
At this
Where
point,
are you from?
Overholser agrees. I'll listen. You've got it to where like I will at least go along insofar as to listen to what you have to say. They walk them back to their camp, which they realize now, like, who's cooking? How are they doing this? If their whole party is here, what's going on back there? And then we meet our very first,
Andy.
to say he's like 7 foot tall. He's a 7 foot tall robot.
Don't they meet him whenever he's running down the hill or some shit?
He's not running, but yeah, he's like on his way to meet them. From the before they actually get to the camp, though, Eddie guesses Wayne Overholser's middle name. He guesses it starts with a D, and then it's only got a few letters in it because he remembers the book that Jake pointed out to him in the dream, which is who was it? Calvin Tower tells him, "Nice handle, pard. Sounds like a character in a Wayne D. Overholser novel." So, plus the recurring number that we got going on, he kind of could guess how many letters are in the guy's name. So he kind of tells his fortune.
21?
Yes, 21 is the number. He figures out that his middle name is Dale, and Susanna mentions the Thinny. He says, "Oh, Andy's told us about the Thinny, but I've never seen it because I don't travel." He's doubting Jake and Eddie if they're gunslingers. And Susanna pretty much says, "You must decide that for yourself when the time comes." So he's kind of like trying to get the conversation going with her, but she pretty much like shuts him down, like, "Hey man, like, we are who we are, and it's gonna be up to you to like make the decision. We're not gonna convince you." He did say that Roland's eyes scared him, which I think Roland's eyes are commented on like quite a few times. He's got what do they say, Bombardier's eyes, like blue denim, blue like denim. I think they mentioned before. At this point, they do make it to the camp. Andy is striding to them, but it mentions he's coming down the slope, moving with a prissy care that she couldn't help find amusing. It was a metal man at least 7 feet high. Every one of them's first instinct is to reach for their gun. Andy ends the chapter here by asking if anybody wants their horoscope read. We've heard him do this many times before. He's constantly trying to get people to hear his horoscopes for them. That brings us to chapter 6, The Way of the Eld. And this is kind of a... everything kind of comes
pleasantry
together. Yeah, it's kind of like a campfire. Everyone's kind of talking to each other kind of thing going on where they're pretty much on on a level playing field now. They've eaten a huge meal and they've discussed certain details as they continue. Obviously, like, they get specifics on these details, but they learn that there's a huge stretch of these kalas, these villages. They learn that there's a land called Thunderclap that no one goes to. They learn that the world is ending where our quartet came from. That's what they say is that the world is ending. Something like 1,000 miles north and then 2,000 miles south. There's like a 3,000-mile long stretch of these Kala lands where these villages and towns and farms and like pretty much just kind of the same type of lifestyle as what they were living in Magus in like the previous book. You've got certain ones do horses and certain ones do fishing and certain ones do rice and certain ones do carrots, and they all kind of trade and they're very interrelated. They mentioned that like the snows fall up north and they wear wooden shoes, and you kind of get this whole idea that there's a bountiful like plentiful land here full of people.
Yeah, you see all I could think of is like it makes me think of like those animes that show like Japanese or Korean culture that each town does do that. Like one does rice patties,
Yeah,
one does,
and they all just kind of support each other.
And it's like and if one fails, then the other ones will have problems, so on and so forth.
Right? Yeah.
Kind of back to the basics.
Well, there's a point where Eddie kind of marvels at how civilized these lands seem compared to, Lud, where they're like fighting each other in factions in a rundown post-apocalyptic city, or even like the old people like before that who, pretty much were like dying out and living in the ruins of a town.
Yeah, it reminds me of Fallout.
Yeah, definitely. Eddie, we follow him into the woods while he takes a poop, and someone sneaks up on him. It's our friend and resident robot, Andy, who's very argumentative when it comes to, hey man, why'd you sneak at me when I'm taking a crap? That's not cool. Well, I actually wasn't sneaking. He just kind of has this smug attitude for a robot, which is Eddie finds a reason to actually say yes to the horoscope, and Andy is super excited. He tells him that he's Goat Moon, goat with beard, which is some kind of analog to the horoscopes of our world. I'm not sure what that could possibly be. Like Taurus, maybe? Aries? Which one's the goat? Come on. We need our resident witch.
Hold on a minute. I think it's Capricorn.
Capricorn's a goat?
Yes.
That's like the...
Capricorn's a goat.
Well, maybe it's a Capricorn.
Which is December to January.
Okay. Which makes sense because Andy says to him, winter's snow is full of woe, winter's child is strong and wild. So December, January sounds like it would be definitely his birthday. Eddie asks Andy about the wolves, and which triggers this like secondary kind of reaction that they haven't seen yet, and he pretty much says like, "What's your password?" And Eddie's like, I don't know what the password is. This is where we do like a spy back and forth thing, and he's like, "Wrong password, 3, 2, 1. Sorry. Do you want to try again? You can only try again once." And kind of just, like cuts him off, and very mysterious about it. And he says there's a certain directive keeping him from telling him that, and I guess it's what our friend Hockey Steves in chat said. It's Directive 19. So here we are with our favorite number popping back up again. And Eddie says, of course, like, my friend, that doesn't surprise me at all. Directive 19 it is. He passes on his expanded horoscope and a song called The Jimmy Juice I Drank Last Night, which sounds kind of cool. I kind of wish we could hear what the Jimmy Juice I Drank Last Night song sounded like, but...
Write your own.
Yeah, maybe. Eddie has kind of got this idea in his mind. He's thinking about Andy as if the same kind of way that he would interact with Officer Bosconi back in New York when he was happy and you were doing good and you weren't in trouble. His name was Bosco Bob, and he was your best friend. But then, like, when you were in trouble, Bosco Bob turned back into Officer Bosconi and would, like, kick your ass. And he kind of felt that same kind of dichotomy when he's talking to Andy. Normal, friendly, here's your horoscope, and then, like, ask you a question you don't want to answer, or ask you something that's, like, very specific about the situation here, and now it's all, like, passwords and, like, Directive 19s. So there's kind of a split thing going on there. And with a robot, kind of makes sense, right? How he'd be able to have a jolly personality, but he's been there. I believe that they said like for like the last 120 years or so.
Probably.
And
all of the electronics have that bipolar, not quite bipolar, but like dual personalities in all of it. It seems.
I have to agree. It maybe one of the running themes here is like as robotic intelligence ages, it goes crazy. So we'll never hear the Jimmy Juice song, Steve.
It's called Duplicity.
Duplicity's good. At this point, we get back into the conversation with Roland and everyone kind of at the campfire after eating. Now they're all drinking coffee. They pretty much start talking about how the wolves take one of the twins. The Kalas are either blessed or cursed, however you want to look at it, with twins. We've seen twins multiple times in the story so far. Each time that there's one that is taken by the wolves and one that's left behind. The one that comes back ruined. We started this book with a chapter called Ruined, and pretty much it means ruined. They've been changed. They start growing. They don't stop growing. They only live to about 30. They're no longer intelligent. If they're taken young, they lose speech. If they're taken older, they're still just as unintelligent, but they've sometimes got some of their speech left. There's a point where they ask about Andy and how he knows when they're coming, and they say, oh, maybe that's his programming, or maybe someone changed it, or they just kind of like shrug it off. He just knows. And Eddie thought of asking Overholzer and Slightman how the old people could have shut Andy's mouth concerning the wolves if the wolves had been raiding on a thunderclap for less than 2 centuries, but then didn't bother. He says, interesting to wonder when someone or something had last programmed Andy the Messenger and many other functions. They talk a lot about how their bodies would grow and they would scream in pain. I guess what it said was like, it's like their whole bodies were teething, which if any of you guys have been through teething or had children dealing with teething, that's like one of the most frustrating parts is you can't communicate to them like that it's okay, that it's just, something happening and they just have to deal with it, and it's like there's no comfort. Like you can't give them any comfort. That's one of the worst parts as a parent about, because like you have to go through that. Like your teeth have to grow out of your face. That's just how it works. And for these runt children, like they end up giants, and as part of that, their bodies grow. They said for what, like a year and a half straight. They said they could put their ears up to them and like hear their bones growing.
Just nothing disturbing about that.
My grandmother doesn't have any cartilage in her knees, so when she walks, you can literally
can you hear that?
Oh,
Yeah.
That's all. That's what I thought. Oh, good God. like creaking wood.
So they ask him then, like, how many wolves are there, and to describe them, it says they look like men, but they wear masks. And they agree, 40 to 60 or 80. Well, not 80, but definitely 60. Or, I could agree on 60. So there's no real count. No one really knows exactly how many there are. But they all kind of settle around probably more than 40, but less than 80. It says that they wear these wolf masks. Gray is their horses, and they all come on gray horses. They wear gray pants that looks like skin, black boots with big, cruel steel spurs, green cloaks and hoods, and the masks. We know they're masks because they've been found left behind. They look like steel, but rot in the sun like flesh. Green cloaks and hoods, gray wolf masks. Does that sound like anything to anybody?
Kind of reminds me of the swamp people.
Yeah.
Okay.
What does it sound like to you, Sneak?
Well, I know what it is.
Oh, okay.
So I know what it sounds like to me.
It almost sounds like those riders that Roland and his friends encountered during their time in the town with Susan, and that just strikes me somewhat like that.
Okay, sure. Let's see.
Like he asked him how many times about the gray horses, to the point where he was pissing Holzer off.
Yes. They also talked to them about across the big plains, the big mountain where they say the end of the world has already happened. They call that Thunderclap. Zalia, who is one of the wives here, what's his name, Tian? She says, "'Tis a land of vampires, boggarts, and tahine. So the stories say." Of course, the stories are old, but then Callahan breaks in here and says, the stories are true. There are vampires, other things as well, very likely, and Thunderclap's their nest. We might speak more of this another time, Gunslinger, if it does you. For now, only hear me, I beg. Of vampires, I know a good deal. I don't know if the wolves take the children to them. I rather think not, but yes, there are vampires. And Roland says, why do you speak, as if I doubt? Callahan, if you remember, we spoke on his previous existence in the Stephen King verse. He was the priest in a town called Jerusalem's Lot that was overrun by vampires. We will definitely hear more of his story as he's willing to tell it in this book. But if anybody's interested, we could watch that movie again. It was fucking tight. But he's very much aware of vampires, and Roland's like, yeah, man, of course. Gosh, yeah, of course. Vampires.
Why not?
They ask them, when do the wolves come? And they pretty much say, like, right after breakfast. Andy knows the day. It's pretty much what they say. We know the day because Andy knows the day, and that much he tells us. Then we hear the thunder of their hooves as they come out of the east and see the rooster tail of the dust they raise. So you know when they're coming. In fact, you know 3 ways, Roland says. Andy, the sound of the hoofbeats, and the raise of their dust. Overholser then reminds them they come armed with guns, rifles, as well as revolvers, granados, and other weapons. Fearsome weapons of the old people, light sticks that kill at a touch, flying metal buzzballs called drones or sneeches. The sticks burn the skin black and stop the heart. Electrical. Eddie overheard the next word as antonomic, but he realized it's probably supposed to say atomic. It says once the drones smell you, they follow you no matter how fast you run or how much you twist and turn. They sprout blades that whirl around so fast you can't see them, and they cut you apart. Then Roland says again, all on gray horses, every one of them the same color. What else? Trying to see if that they recap anything more here. The wolves always know where they were. It says, if the kids were moved or hidden at home, the wolves found them anyway, and in short order. Those in the call who tried to stand against them were shot, fried by the light sticks, maybe some kind of laser, or cut to pieces by the flying drones. Jake then asks, they must bring them back, right? And then he says, no, the root ones come back on the train. There's a great junk pile of them I could show you. And of course, Jake reacts to the train like, oh, no. I don't know why that would be such a reaction.
It's got a couple of reasons.
Roland then asks like how long the wolves have them. They let him know 2 or 3 days. Long enough where they get sunburns, but not long enough to die of exposure. He's asking how many days are left. They say 26. And at this point, they're talking about Overholser says, we haven't said yes or no to you guys helping us or not. There's a part where Slightman the Elder mentions, my family had no books growing up. There's none out of the ranch, but I'm a foreman of Eisenhardt's Rocking Bee. Except for the Stockline books. Growing up, I heard as many tales of Gilead and gunslingers and Arthur Eld as any other boy. I heard of Jericho Hill and such blood and thunder tales of pretend. But I never heard of a gunslinger missing 2 of his fingers, or a brown-skinned woman gunslinger, or one who won't be old enough to shave for years yet. He says, I'm sorry if what I say offends you, but any decision we make will have long echoes. You must see it. If we make the wrong one, it can mean the death of our town and all in it.
Saying some pretty strong things.
Yeah, pretty much saying like, you're claiming to be a fairy tale come alive.
It's like you have to help us.
It would be like almost as if like, you know, someone came up to us and was like, yo, I'm King Arthur. Like, yeah, sure you are. At this point, Roland decides he's gonna show a little, put on a little show. He has Andy grab some plates, and then he goes to Jake. And
I like how he uses Jake.
yes.
That's really cool.
He has him say his lesson, which is, I do not aim with my hand. He who aims with his hand has forgotten the face of his father. I aim with my eye. I do not shoot with my hand. He who shoots with his hand has forgotten the face of his father. I shoot with my mind. I do not kill with my gun. He who kills with his gun has forgotten the face of his father. And then he says, I kill with my heart. And Roland says, kill these. And he slings all 4 plates in the air. All at once. Jake blurs to the Docker's clutch with his father's Ruger in it. This is the part that's impressive. Jake shoots all the plates, and then of course Roland has to one-up him and catches all the pieces. Eddie, Susanna, they've all got pottery shards of these plates. Callahan's like, whoa, what a trick. And he's like, it's not a trick. This is who we are.
I mean, that's really the only way they could prove it anyways.
Well, also Roland kind of tells him too, like, I'll tell you what we will do. What we will do, I say, for no man bids us. Yet I think nothing I will say will discomfort you too badly. If those had been wolves, he said, there would have been 56 less to trouble you instead of 60. 4 of them lying on the ground, dead before you could draw a breath, killed by a boy. What you would call a boy, mayhap. We're used to long odds. Slightman says there's a difference between clay dishes and wolves on horseback, but Roland says, for you maybe, but not for us. Once we start shooting, we kill what moves.
What's been very Roland like from the beginning when he murdered like an entire town.
And then Overholster also says, suppose they can't be shot. Can't be laid low even by the hardest of hard calibers. And Roland's like, you know they can be killed. Or you never would have come here to us in the first place. I didn't ask because the answer is self-evidence. So, pretty much like you wouldn't be here asking us to help you if you didn't think help would be worth it. He pretty much sets them up. We're gonna come to your town. They're invited into the homes of people. Callahan has a church, so they choose to go with him. Of course, there's something else going on with that too, right? He says, you could show us your church, introduce us to its mysteries, which we know there's something definitely going on there, right?
Yep.
Definitely going on there. And then he says, in the days after, we shall throw ourselves on the hospitality of the town. Overholster wants to put in, don't be carried away by the old fellow's enthusiasm, Roland. There are others in town you'll have to convince. They name off a few people. Roland's thinking to himself, like, they still don't get it. He says, thank you. What lies directly ahead of us comes down to looking and listening. Mostly when it's done, we'll ask that whoever's in charge of the feather take it around so that a meeting can be called. And at that meeting, we'll tell you if the town can be defended and how many men will want to help us if it can be done. Then I and my friends will thank you for your hospitality. If we decide the Kala can't be defended, we have our own business further down the path of the beam. I don't think that's likely, you know. There's usually a way, though. So he's kind of like reassuring them, like, look, it's going to happen, and it's going to have to be like, if we can do it, if we can help, we will help because that's what we do. We have to. That's who we are. If not, then we'll leave you to it. See, there's a really good paragraph here. This was the point where he could hammer home the truth should he want to. If these people still believed Untitled gunslingers would be bound by what farmers and ranchers decided in public meeting, they really had lost the shape of the world as it once was. But was that so bad? In the end, matters would play out and become part of his long history, or not. If not, he would finish his history and his quest in Calibre and Sturgis, moldering beneath a stone. Perhaps not even that. Perhaps he'd finish in a dead heap somewhere east of town, he and his friends with him. So much rotting meat to be picked over by the crows and rusties. Ka would tell. It always did. Roland stands up, says, "We're well met. As for what lies ahead, there will be water if God wills it." We've heard that phrase before. That is the end of this chapter. Sorry, P-Pops.
Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say that was the end of our reading.
They don't understand is it isn't up to them if they stay. Like if Roland and them decide that like they need to stay or they can help by staying.
Yes.
So much because the farmer still thinks like if he says no, even though Roland can made a commitment that Roland's just gonna fuck off, and Roland's like no. I've actually only read a tiny bit farther than this, so I'm not gonna.
Cool.
Say anything.
Cool. So at this point, they have decided that they're gonna look around. They're at least interested in seeing if they can help, and I think that's the important part of this. Is not necessarily that. Not necessarily that like they've chosen now to be a part of it, but they're saying like it sounds like you could use help, and we'll show up and we'll look around and we'll see if we can help. But
I mean, honestly, the way that they've been running, it's not up to them either. Yes and no, because they're following Ka.
Path of the Beam.
Exactly.
If Ka wills it.
Yes. So there's actually like quite a lot going on with this setup. We kind of get the idea that we've got Father Callahan and what's going on with him. We've got Mia and what's going on with her. Then we got these wolves and what's going on with that. There's kind of a swirling thing happening where all these pieces are going to start falling into place.
It's like a climax.
And it's like the beginning of the book, so I'm, sure we're going to get a lot.
It's only just begun.
It's only just begun. And as we learn more and more about this Kala and about these people and what's going on, we're also going to learn more about like Father Callahan, and we're going to learn more about maybe more about Mia. Might not learn anything.
We learned something interesting about Mia too, because Susanna, actually, the fact that Roland made her kind of like the side piece there was interesting because you could hear a lot of her thoughts, and she talked about that she's actually been having her period still.
Yes,
and that she's not carrying what we think of as to be a baby.
So worried. She's worried.
It's really
that she's
interesting.
Not. She's very excited about possibly carrying Eddie's baby, but she's like, I don't, I'm not having my cycle. So, I am still having my cycle. Like it didn't stop. So there's definitely something going on there. Hopefully,
they're all not talking to each other again, as always about shit. They all know shit. They all know kind of the same shit. They just don't want to talk about it.
Yeah.
Well,
what she said.
Around the fire, and Roland says, "Hey, remember when that demon jumped on you and possibly impregnated you? We should talk about that because it's not what you think it is."
She's still bleeding.
There's going to be some hard conversations in the future, I'm sure. As we are continuing on through this read-through. Let's say hello to Burrito Therapy in chat. Hey, Burrito.
Burrito Therapy.
This is my channel, but it's our book club, so we're all kind of coming back together for the first time in the new year to discuss like this past reading. It's
been so long.
We try to do it every week, but we took a holiday break that lasted like almost 2 months. So we're kind of getting back into the swing of things now. Yeah.
To be off as long as we were, I was concerned about picking up the book and whether or not I still cared. And I was very happy to pick it up and just slide right back in there.
Very cool. Yeah, we are reading.
I care too.
We're reading Stephen King's The Dark Tower. We are on book 5, Wolves of the Kala.
Just begun.
Yes.
But we've read through all of the previous books, and
some of us have finished the series.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Modus, what were you saying, bud?
I said I care too. I was just trying to let everyone know I'm still here.
I'm glad you care, Modus.
Yeah. And that was the thing too. We took a long break, so even to remember where we were, it was kind of good that Cand had listed the what we'd already read, because I'm flipping through. I know this.
Yes.
Well, I already read through the first time. I was like, oh shit. I think I'd read all the way up to where I am now.
You kind of got a refresher, so that's good.
Yeah.
We'll come back next week. We'll read the next 2 chapters.
So exciting.
See how long those are. Hang on. See how long those are. We got Toadash.
We have an art page in this next area.
You do.
Yes, I do.
I think Andy is also somebody very interesting, because even what he told Eddie about his fortune, there were some things in there we're going, how do you know this, Andy? And he says, programming.
Programming. Okay, so we should read up to chapter 3, The Priest Tale, page 254 in the book. 161 to 254.
Yeah, we were doing about 100 pages. So
yeah.
Here's part 2.
The audio book on Audible, so
nice.
I'll have to figure out
Spoiler.
where to start.
It's
just real quick.
It's one of my favorite series of books. There's quite a few that I really like, but this one I've come back to multiple times because it's just so much fun.
I was just talking to somebody about loving this series, and they're like, "Oh my god, like, have you read this and this?" I said, "No." Dark Tower is the only series of King that I've read, but I love all of his movies, or a lot of his movies, and I can see so many connections, so many.
That's one of the coolest parts about his kind
Stephen
of
King.
like works as a whole is that, you know, he like did very much hard links between stories, but also there's some soft ones as well, ones that aren't necessarily like obvious but still like very much there. There's like a whole it's like a whole thing of like they put together this like compendium of books and how they're related, and like every single Stephen King work and what's common
Tied.
and yeah, like it's a huge thing. It's gigantic. Also, Burrito, thank you for the follow. Welcome to the Thieves Den.
Welcome.
We do lots of fun stuff. Promise.
You said chapter 3, correct?
Yeah, it's called
The Priest Tale.
The Priest
New
Tale.
York.
That's where we're gonna stop. We're gonna stop before he starts that.
Okay.
Did I miss anything tonight? Steve pointed out one of the things that I kind of glossed over. Did I miss anything else?
Well, the horoscope from Andy, I don't know if you're referring to that. I thought he really kind of got in Eddie's head, because he started telling Eddie things, but then stopped, and
He's like, error. Directive 19.
well, he says you're going to be going to Toadash, and that kind of freaked him out, because they had already kind of dealt with that kind of stuff.
But he gave him a clue. He's like, whenever you hear the bells toll, pretty much, focus on each other so you don't get lost.
There you go. He did give him some travel notes.
Piddly bits.
He did tell him like you're gonna go back to Colorado Sturgis or call New York tonight.
You know, the thing about Andy is we've heard about him before in a previous book. You guys remember that?
Part magic, not just robotic technology. I feel like being where he's been, something's like rubbed off on him more than just like your normal robot. Like the crazy part isn't really so much crazy, but like
Where did we hear about him before?
The man who takes him across on the ferry.
Yes.
Says, "Hey, watch out for that Andy and his horoscopes."
There you go. The guy on the ferry before the Stark
Thank you
Blast.
for the reminder.
That's why I didn't remember, because that's a new edition.
How the fuck would he know? Since he's robotic, unless, it's all according to plan.
They did mention Andy travels. Andy walks. He's all
everywhere.
over the place.
that's where I think he gets like.
I mean, think about it. There's, thousands of miles of towns and villages, and everyone knows Andy. He tells everyone when the wolves are coming.
Like
He's a
that.
walking dude.
Andy can move without people hearing him. He did it to Eddie.
That is true.
He's
So,
Stealthy.
he didn't sneak though. He just didn't creak in the underbrush because of programming.
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 Really enjoyed the reading. I'm glad we got a chance to catch back up. Gonna keep pushing forward. Finish the book. I'd say by the end of February, probably. Probably be done with that soonish. Then we'll start the next one. We'll keep moving. Thank you for being a little bit late with me this evening. I know it was pushed back a little bit longer than we usually go, so
Yep, we usually meet at 10 Eastern, 9 Central. Be back on Saturday.
Sneak will be
With
fined
book club.
accordingly in paying his fines.
yes, I will pay my fines to the people who I've offended. I will also say
appalled.
good night to Burrito Therapy. Thanks for hanging out with us. We try to do this every Saturday night. We are going to be calling it a show here very soon. So thanks for hanging out with us, and we really appreciate your lurk.
I gotta say that is a great username too, because I'm just thinking about this time last week when I was having a down day, and I got this dang green chili chimichanga from Chewy's, and I'll tell you what, my day got a lot better.
Burritos really
Yep.
do feed the soul as
Just-
well as the stomach.
Next to your loans.
Is that dog crawling up her sleeve? What the hell's going on?
Here, look.
Nothing to see here.
Oh, it just looks like it. It looked like he had his whole head like up in her sleeve. That's funny.
You-
Wow, she looks so animated. Uh-oh.
It's funny he always says it.
You
Because I
got him in
just
trouble.
fucking had this dream.
Hey, Modus. Tam Tam had a dream about you telling us about that
And
chimichanga.
the burrito thing, the whole thing, I dreamed it all.
'Cause
I-
that's how
did you see me
Really
start
good topic.
freaking out? Every freaking word.
And welcome to
All right.
Deja
well,
Vu.
Deja vu.
Like,
now.
no,
man.
I'm sick. Like,
That means
it,
you're
it
on.
was the most.
That means you're on the path of the beam. You're
That was the strongest
following.
deja vu.
I've
It's
had
really
that happen
crazy.
a few times in life. I've
If-
had something that I dreamed about when I was 5 or 6 happen about a place that I hadn't even been to yet until I was like 25. And
It's creepy as hell.
It was like,
No, man, it's the fucking dimensions.
It is the
Y'all.
dimensions. Hey, real
the
quick,
dimensions.
Burrito. I'm sure there's links somewhere on some page somewhere, but if you find my YouTube, you can watch the old episodes, like us going through the
All
whole
of them.
series. It's on my YouTube channel. I think
Didn't
actually,
didn't we meet over a drawing of the three or the gunslinger as well?
I think we did the whole.
The whole thing, but we didn't start reading it. Unfortunately, had to take the readings down.
Yeah, you got in
Ended up
trouble
getting
for that.
a-
But yeah, it's on my
got a
YouTube
ping for
channel.
it.
I'm sure, like if you have free time or you want to try to catch up to like where we are now, like you can go check those out. They should
They're
all
only
be
about
there.
an hour each.
Yeah, I'm trying to keep
And
'em
why is
pretty low.
Modus listening to Tam Tam's thoughts? I think we should put that on
Oh,
the
this
table
is in
too.
her brain.
He
But
listened to her
burrito-
thoughts and then went and got the chimichanga.
it's the burrito touch.
Burrito therapy. Welcome to your destiny.
This
You're
was
in.
supposed to happen.
Hey, I'm gonna go eat. Bye.
Burrito bonus.
Enjoy your burrito,
Fucking
Modus.
burritos.
Good show today, guys. I really like the energy. We're back to where we were. It feels like we didn't even stop.
Dennis Williams Jr. was loving it. Did y'all see he kept sliding?
Uh huh. Turned into a puddle like real fast.
He's like, ha ha.
my kids
It's been so
do
long.
that.
All right, guys. Say good night, and we'll end the stream.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night.
All of the emotes.
Good night.
Night, burrito.